Hello there, and welcome to my little arty corner of the internet here on YouTube, really. It's Friday, it's the 19th of September. It's pretty grey and damp out here in the valleys of South Wales. And I'm feeling better. I'm still not 100%, but I'm getting there. I'm almost there now, so that's a good thing. Nobody likes being unwell, especially when it interferes with my workflow, I suppose. I'm glad that some of you enjoyed the dangle design yesterday. I really wasn't sure about sharing something like that, but I guess it's trying things out and seeing what people enjoy and what they don't enjoy. So here I've got a piece of paper from my disc-bound sketchbook. I think this is Canson Imagine mixed media paper that I've coloured. Well, I know I've coloured it with distress inks, and you may not be able to make out on the screen, but there's a very subtle background texture pattern. This side is a bit more visible where you can see the patterns there, so they'll just lurk behind whatever I draw. But for whatever reason, I've chosen this side to draw on today, and I've plonked it landscape size because I can for no other reason than because it fits on the screen a bit better, doesn't it? Portrait's always a bit of a dodgy one when you've got wide views, so there we are. What I thought I'd do today is I'm not going to take a particular pattern. I don't think so. We'll have a look and see. But I'm going to take some of my favourite kinds of things and just draw them and put them all together. I say favourite things, there are so many, it's ridiculous. I've got an A5 book almost full of them, and loads more that I've done in, through exploring patterns, and they're in sketchbook from Inktober and from this month and so on. But I'm digging into my old, my visual reference for some ideas for today. And I thought I'd start with, these are just, I'm using here, it is a Tombow Fudenasuki pen, but it's a dual tip. It's got black ink on one end and grey on the other. So an interesting combination. The nib is actually a bit softer than the hard nib I like, but not as soft as the soft Fudenasuki nib. Yeah. If you're not familiar with them, they've got a nylon nib on them that's flexible, so you can vary the width of lines easily. So with a very light touch, like you can see here, I'm getting nice fine lines. Oops, so fine there, I didn't even touch the paper. Or thicker lines if I just apply a little bit more pressure, which makes it a lot easier to work with. Because I often use how thick a line is, how wide a line is, the weight of a line in my art, to suggest shadow and depth to help with that. These are the kinds of shapes and designs I really like. They remind me of seed pods, weird seed pods, or things you'd find in the sea. So I'm going to draw another one here, but this time I'm going to draw the outside first, and then I can do that inner section. I'm going to leave a little empty space there as a highlight. What I can do is I can always come back and fill that in with a white gel pen if I really want it to be ultra white. I'm going to do the same thing here. And you know me, I'll put 3 in because I much prefer an odd number. Now, do I cluster them together in a almost roughly circular group, or do I put them in almost in a chain? I think I'm going to cluster them. There we go. So I'm going to work this quite quickly. The dangle design yesterday, I did scan in this morning and I have cleaned it up and what have you. And I had coloured it in, most of it coloured in, and I realised I really haven't made a very good job of colour choices, that I'm not happy with what I've done. So I did this digitally. But the actual drawing, I've got the version that's there is a very clean version now, and with some bits and pieces that have been corrected or sorted out as they need to be, really. Okie doke. So those make a nice little collection. This time I'm going to put some of these shapes in, which are, they're ovals, but I'm making them a bit donutty like. You see how I've made the upper line here thicker than the lower one inside, and it's the opposite on the outside oval. So it's the thin line at the top, the thicker line there. When you do this, it gives the feeling that you have got a ring that's there. Perhaps not quite as donutty as we'd like. The last time I had donuts, I really didn't enjoy them very much. They used to be something I used to absolutely enjoy, but they just don't taste right anymore. I don't know why. Taste change, or I think it's, there was a long time when I wasn't able to get hold of them for whatever reason, in the past year and a half, and perhaps that lack of familiarity with them and the taste means that I just don't enjoy them now. Funny, isn't it? It could also just be an age kind of thing, because our tastes do change with age, I think. But, it could just be that these particular donuts aren't made to the same recipe as they used to be. I don't know. It's the honest answer. I know that sort of like a donut recipe is a donut, but it's like flavours of things that you're used to, or that you have regularly. Sometimes suddenly they change. Chocolate doesn't taste the same. I don't know what it is, but chocolates just don't taste the same. But I'm not sure whether that's my tastes have changed. It's become over sweet. So there's some interesting collections of these. I keep telling everybody I really like seed shapes. I do. I really like seeds, but it's quite nice to have this distinct, almost quite a distinct difference in the contrast that's here. I can see what would have been interesting was if I'd put a border around those central bits. So let me veer off and do that with some that are perhaps one's a bit skew-whiff there. If you're not British, you may not recognise the term skew-whiff, and it is what it sounds like. If it's a bit skew-whiff, it's a bit wonky, bit off centre or off where it should be. So my line was a bit skew-whiff. Having said that, it may not be a familiar term in certain parts of the UK. I do not know, because very, very dialect varied the UK is, depending on which area you live in. You know, in Wales, there's the Welsh language, which causes all kinds of confusion for people, especially if you're not used to seeing road signs in 2 different languages. And Welsh is the one at the top usually. So that no doubt is very confusing for visitors. Wales is very proud of its language and its heritage, particularly in creativity. There we are. So that adds a different feel, just doing something simple like that. It changes the whole. They're the same but different. So I was wittering on about Wales, wasn't I? You know, in the valleys where I live, there's a particular way of speaking that's referred to rather lovingly as Wenglish. And things that people say, and to us who live here, you think it's sort of like, you know what people mean. And I come from my family is English, and though I was brought up here, there are lots of things I'd never heard and were never spoken in the house. And you know, going to school and things like that, you got to hear these things, and sometimes they sounded really silly. Like one of the things we say is now in a minute. Well, is it now or is it in a minute? It just means soon, or you know, as soon as I can. Now in a minute. It's just a classic one. There are so many that I must probably use them myself without realising. But it's very endearing, and yeah, it is. It is what it is, I think. Okay, so we've got these. I'm going to add some more variations on these, which would be circular-ish. I'm going to put that ring in the middle again. And I'm going to make these lines. So the outer ring, the line is thin on the top and thick on the bottom. The inner ring is the other way around, so it's thick on the top and thin on the bottom. And then I'm going to split this up as I've done before, like a stripy donut. Except that here I've put lines in pairs close together. So that's a simple variation, isn't it? I'll do the same here. And I'm just drawing them. I imagine they're going behind. They're big enough that I don't need to trace around. It's just, you know, a vaguely circular arc, really. Where you position this central circle ring does give a different kind of feel to the shape. And show you what I mean. Oh gosh, that one's overspilled just a little bit too much, didn't it? It's okay, we'll adjust it. Just make it like that. Okay, so if I take a circle and I pop this in the middle, and I'm going to do, I am going to change this because it does get a bit tedious if I'm drawing the same things over and over. Let's put a circle of little circles around there. I'll put some lines around. They're not, I could have chosen to join them, you know, in between each circle. I happen to just pop them in wherever I felt was appropriate. So let's do another circle. This time, instead of having that little ring in the centre, I'll put it towards the top. Just by doing this, already it feels that I've got a much fuller kind of ball shape. I don't know where shaped comes in. What I just spoke was total and utter rubbish, which is indicative of how my brain just is not functioning, let alone my mouth. So just by moving that up, it gives a much fuller feeling to that particular seed pod. And let's do one more and I'll have them kissing. And this time I'm going to move it off towards the bottom. And this time I'm going to but not just to the bottom. Instead of moving it top center, the orientation of this, I've moved it to the bottom left. So this can be a bit tricky to add these lines in. So the one that's in the sort of central line, I make kind of almost straight. This one isn't, it's bending a little bit. But the others, these ones are bending back towards this side, as are these. And it gives that kind of feeling of, if you imagine put your finger on a ball and it would move, the direction it would move in, I suppose is the easiest way to describe this. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding like little flower petals in, which work quite nicely there. So by changing the distance, it changes that feel of the ball, of the shape, of how spherical it appears. And I quite like that. Look at all of these, all so similar. Okay, let's do some others down here, because oh yeah, we haven't finished yet. How many variations can there be on a simple circle with something in the centre, or off centre, but it would be a centre if it was a ball? Can we do? Well, the answer is lots. I don't know whether there is an upper limit on it. It's all to do with how creatively you can think and what you could vary it with. So I've got these where I've got these I've made all small ones, but this one I'm just going to use some bigger ones and pop them together. I'm living in the same rock pool of some strange world, possibly a rock pool. So here's another one. So let's vary the size of them that go in the central area, and I can make this a bigger conglomeration of little blobs. I don't know what you call them. And then I'm drawing these lines mostly straight and just bending them down at the end towards the outside edge. So the others have been completely straight, but by doing this, I'm giving that feeling again. It's these contour lines, we call them, that give you a feeling of, again, you put your finger on it, you're looking at your finger, which way would your finger move? So, you know, it would go downwards where things slope away. So it's a way of adding that suggestion of volume to your drawing. So there we are, there's some more. Right, I'm determined I'm going to add some more here. Look at this, I chatted for a couple of minutes before I started. It's 20 minutes now, and look at how much there is. So this time I'm going to put a collection of bigger blobs inside. Now I could leave them as they are, but I love to give them dark centres. They end up looking a bit like weird eyes or weird eggs. That's nice. And I'm going to vary these by adding little circles into them where I can, or other shapes. Different ways of doing them. I think that I often start by drawing them, sort of draw a bit of a line, draw the circle, draw a bit of a line. But if I want these scattered around a bit more, and varying in size, shape and position, you know, size and position, then I prefer to put them in first and then draw the lines in. And sometimes I haven't got a clue which way I prefer to do things, because I just do them. So I could take just one of these and could put others around it of different sizes. These are big enough that I can go back and add circles within them, so they look a bit like the other one. Again, I can always go back. So I've just put black circles in there, black blobs, so I can always go back with a white gel pen and add the highlights in that way. And then by drawing them in first, I can arrange them how big I want them, where I particularly want them, how close I want. I'm just saying, because this is how my brain works. I'm trying to think out loud what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So this adds a lot more texture and pattern. It's a lot more fun to add shading or colour to. There we are. And then, because I've been doing, well, at least three of each, haven't I, except for these little ones, because they're so cute. Let's do another one that has just a couple of these, perhaps. Now, if I left it like that, that would not freak me out, but it looks like a googly face. So it's okay if you want a face in there, hint of some kind of weird doodle kind of creature. That's fine, but I don't. Again, I'm using these very curved lines that vary in the amount of curvature they have to suggest we've got more of a ball shape there. Okay. With these, I thought that it could be quite fun to draw them like this, perhaps have bits growing out. and because they're growing out, and they can go over other things that are here. This one I'd have to watch carefully because I've left those middle bits open, so you'd have to think carefully about where you put them and end them. But I think they work quite nicely. And then just another one here, because I can. Let's give them triangular tops as a bit of variation. So I've got some stuff growing here. Now that will bug me. I'm not so keen on those, but it's okay. So I am going to just pop very flat kind of arch here. Really not keen on those. Don't know why. Put another one on this side, and perhaps another one with it. Perhaps it's because I've used different shapes for these, they just don't feel coherent. There's another one in there. And that may help. And just to fill this space in, because it just feels that it needs it, I'm just going to put one in with nothing growing out of it. Just going to fill these little gaps in with black ink. Now with these I could, oops, come on down. There we are, let's make you meet there, so it looks like they're growing out. That one looks strange, doesn't it, there? This one all on its own without anything growing out of it, so think carefully about where I grow them out to. So it's done. There we are. Doing strange things. I really wish I hadn't put this arch in now, but it's too late, it's in ink, so I'll have to work with it. And it may be all right once I do work with it. Just going to this is a 01 micron. So a very fine line, and with microns they're a very consistent size of line. And with this one, this is one of my go-to patterns. This is just, I just love it, whether it's triangular and straight like this, you know, triangles and very straight lines, or whether it's the curved version. It's Shattuck, it's a Zentangle pattern. When I've got such large space to use this in, I do like to break the lines up and leave a little gap. It's I'm completely lost now as to what I'm doing. Right, that's, yeah, there we go. And then this little one here on the edge will be, I will be able to fit little bits in there for consistency until I get there. But it just adds that, it's almost, it puts a highlight into the design, the pattern. And I do like to draw it and draw each triangular section individually. Just find this a lot easier to keep track of what I'm doing and where I'm going. I just had to nudge the mouse because the screensaver would come on. I do try to look up more often than you might think I do to see what I'm doing, that I'm doing still on screen. Got these. Okie dokies. Okie dokies. This background has a feeling of being quite a pale yellowy green. There's hints of blue in it. The edges are brown because I've distressed them. A lot of the colour's been washed out deliberately as well. I like to colour the paper. It's not as intimidating, perhaps, daunting as plain white. You've got something to start with. I've got colour there, so the page isn't blank as such, and this page certainly isn't blank because I put the stenciled patterns in as well. So it's something to start with and start from. Oh gosh, I missed completely there. Okay. Oh. No, that should have gone that way. It doesn't matter now. Just going to fill that one in. Do it like that. Okay. So I've got the start of something that's quite interesting, possibly. What next? Don't know. But how many patterns have I done? Or, you know, variations on a theme. I've got this one and this one, which are variations of similar themes, aren't they? But they're not dissimilar to the others either, because the others are variations on this theme of us, you know, something inside a circle and lines and so on. So I've got this variant, so I've got one there, one there, one there. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minor variations here, but there's essentially 6, 7, 8, all in the space of, I don't know, 25 minutes, 30 minutes or so. So it's looking nice. It's interesting. I'm so tempted to aura this and do diva dance. I'm going to behave myself, possibly. Okay, let's have a look. I think we may need some shadows here. So let's dig out some tortillons. I've got plenty. I have multiples. I keep them in my pot with all my pastel pencils, which is a good thing. And I want to dig out a colour that will. I always tend to go for a greeny colour today. Okay, so I'm going to put some of this colour close to the centre of this one. Let's see what colour. This is brown on there. So you will see some colours getting mixed here, but I'm okay with that. It gives some interest, some surprise, and it's sketchbook work. So I'll do the same with the others, just to be consistent here. So let's just gently spread them out, the colour. I'm going to see with this one if I can find a bit of this that's still got some brown on. So there's so it's deliberate. It looks like it's deliberate rather than just a mistake or whatever. So there we are. As soon as you start adding shadow and highlight to them, they start coming to life, that's for sure. And that's what I like. Okie dokes, I'm looking for a different colour. Let's go for an indigo, simply because I do love indigos, and I love rusty colours, and I love these mossy colours. Now I don't know if you can see, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm putting shadow at the front where the line's thick, just above that thick line. I'm doing the same in the inside one, above where the line is thick. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that middle bit yet, but we'll work it out. So again, this is the same one I've just used. There's some green on this, and I'm going to try to keep the dark confined mostly to around the edge. I am going to move it out a little bit so we get some colour there. I really want to keep it close to that black line, so that's where the shadow is, like here. My phone pinging in the background. That's probably just email, because that's what it does. So that's quite nice, but I'm going to use this colour elsewhere, so I'm going to put some on these at the bottom of them, because these are the bits I'd like to be darker. And I am actually putting a bit more chalk down than I did with those other ones at the bottom, because they I've got bigger area to fill, as it were. So I'm only putting the colour down in one place, and I want it quite intense. There. This just rubs nicely and easily into the paper, so I don't get a lot of dust left afterwards. There will be some. So I've mentioned before, I've got some tacky cloths I'm trying out with this, just to see how well they work. And they're not tacky cloths you get for, well, they can be used for painting and decorating, but they're actually sold for things like computer keyboards and things like that. So they actually work nicely to pick little bits of dust up. They feel a bit damp or greasy, but they don't leave anything on the paper, so I'm happy with that. There's hardly anything came up this time. So you can see I've got a distinct central bit, and I'm so pop of colour would be rather good in there. So blue, and I've got an orangey yellow here. I've picked up one of the Conte pastels, which are got a much bigger core than the Carbothellos, and they are not water soluble like the Carbothellos are. Well, some of the Carbothello, the chalky bits aren't, but some of the pigment is. There's some that's water soluble, so you can actually move the colour around. So that's quite fun to put that little spot of colour in there. Okay, these ones, I'm not going to use blue again. I'm not sure I want to use green, to be honest. Ooh. There's a darker green here. I'm going to put this around the central area, all the way around. So I want it to appear that that is dipping in, but I'm going to see if I can keep it around there. This is not like me to use different colours. I can always tell I'm out of sorts when my art feels weird or different and I do strange things with it, things I wouldn't, you could say I'm experimenting, but I know that when I look at this, I'll just go, what on earth was I thinking? And it's because I'm just still out of sorts, really. Okay, so I can just spread a little bit out further. But what I was thinking of is just getting, now there would be shadows underneath this here and here, so I can, and along here, so I can put some extra in there. But I want to get some right around just the outer edge of these and try to leave, oh, wrong one, to get some colour, but to leave a very light area. So it's not going to happen where there are shadows, but to give you that feeling of being almost domed, or like a donut almost. It's not quite. You can see what I'm aiming for or wanting to achieve. Now the secret to this is to blend the colour out in terms of along where the colour is, but not into that central bit as much as possible. And with this I have gone into areas I didn't want to go. So this is an eraser. It's a Tombow Mono 0, so it's like a pen format almost, but the eraser that's in here is very fine. It also doesn't leave a lot of dust, but it does leave some. So for that little bit, tacky cloth should do it. There's still some a bit loose there, but that gives that feeling of it being rolled around the edges. So there's plenty more here to do, but I'm going to leave that for today because I just wanted to show you a couple of ideas of how to add colour to this, or shadow and highlights. And I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure again. Thank you for all the comments, the subscriptions, and for everybody who keeps returning to watch, finding this useful. It makes me feel that I'm doing a fairly decent job here, at least something that's that is nice and important, and I say not important, but something nice to do, to share with others and to help others in their creativity and expression and ideas for drawing things. And you can see how I put things together. This page has got a long way to go, but there's so many variations on here, and if I remember, I'll get a separate page done and I'll log the variations so you can see what they are as well. Perhaps, I don't know. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see. How about that, rather than me saying I will do it, because I've got to remember what I've said and I'm not very good about that. So thank you ever so much. And once again, take care. Please find time to be creative and look after yourselves. Bye-bye for now. Bye.